Hi everyone, this is Master Necromancer Zeiss here, and today I would like to share more information about the build you probably saw me clear the pit tier 200 during the Diablo 4 PTR, either on the live stream or by the video on my YouTube channel. First things first, for those of you who don't know who I am and what I do, I play action RPGs, only hardcore mode. Well, in this PTR, I obviously played softcore to test things, and why would I do something terrible to myself like playing hardcore on a buggy server with, I get, I guess you get the idea, right? So currently I have a platinum trophy for this game on PlayStation. I ranked pretty high on the races to 100. Let's say this season I think I was rank 4. Not that I even tried actually. I found out about D4 Armory where we can check this by the streamer Lucky Luciano on Twitter while we were talking, right? Also on this gauntlet I did rank 3 on PlayStation. That's pretty good. Again, not even trying. I was like preparing and all that, finding gear, and that didn't end well. Anyway, so enough about me, I guess. That pretty much makes me one of the best hardcore necromancers in the world. Among 12 million players, that's not bad, I guess. So let's move on to the build. Let's talk the gear first, because that's the first thing we see when we open our inventory. The important thing to note about defenses and the low damage output you probably saw on that video or on live stream, whatever. The attack power is kind of low, the armor is absolutely capped to the maximum, and the life can go even higher with some incenses and elixirs. Let's talk about this a bit more. Well, on the helmet, I'm using here a helmet with life, essence per second, total armor, fire resistance, and corpse tendril size. I'm also using here the aspect of might, and I socket it with a ruby to get additional life. Well, what I can say about this helmet is that it would have been better if the life and or essence per second are greater affixes, especially the essence per second, especially for bosses, but I wouldn't mind because draining my essence keeps reminding me to use reap, which is okay. Moving on to the chest piece, it's maybe now is where this armor actually shines. But as we can see here, the unique power is only 12 damage reduction, unfortunately, and trust me, it makes an insane difference if you have it to 20. It's basically barrier on demand and additional damage reduction from close enemies and plain damage reduction. I rolled only the life here, but I guess it's also not a bad idea to roll damage reduction from close because this is a close combat build. We'll get to that in a moment. Sobrant is easy to get, you just go kill Duriel a couple of times and Duriel drops it like every other run or something. So go find a party, use the materials of the party to kill it more times, and you will get this armor relatively easy. Moving on to the gloves here, I am using +1 to Blight. You can actually use a +2 to core skills to scale the damage easier because we are trying to hit here the maximum life on the masterworking and also damage to close enemies. I am using here the aspect of decay. Moving on to the pants. You will notice we are hitting here the maximum life and armor. I also have dodge chance, cold resistance, and it's fairly obvious, I guess. Everywhere I have corpse tendril size. We'll get to why that is important. I'm also using here the hardened bones aspect. It's not maxed out. Unfortunately, it would make a difference, trust me it would, but I couldn't find it during the PTR so far. 24 is good enough for this case, I guess. Also socketed with rubies for maximum life. It's also a good idea here to hit the dodge chance, and I'll get to the dodge chance in a bit. You probably noticed it saved me a lot. Moving on to the boots. I have here some boots with the aspect of metamorphosis. It is really helpful, especially when you get crowd controlled or you want to get out of a dangerous situation and not having to waste your HUD skill slot with the bullshit skill Blood Mist. Because we are a Necromancer here, the enemy's worst nightmare, not some pussy who is going to run away from the enemies. Remember that? And keep repeating it to yourself, I guess. I'm hitting here on the master working, the maximum life, the armor. It's really important, at least for my case, to hit the armor at least once, and also I hit the dodge chance on the master working. This is because I'm using the movement speed on the tampering, and obviously on the other tampering affix I'm using corpse tendril size. Corpse tendril size is actually really important for this build. And you probably notice how this 1000 tentacle darkness is actually collecting and gathering enemies from all over the place and bringing them to one point where you can actually deal your damage, restore your essence, and keep dealing your damage. Right, moving on to the weapon here. I know it could be better. Also, it's a blighted aspect. It could be better. The aspect could be higher. And also doesn't have greater affixes, but it would be great, especially if the greater affix is like pretty much any, but mostly the life. Because I'm trying to make the build hardcore viable here, so hence the not so high damage as you might usually see on some other build guide, which enthusiasts softcore players do, or also competitive softcore players. Softcore and competitive in one sentence. There, I said it. Wow. Anyway, so I'm using here the extra damage in the tampering. I believe it would have been better with damage to close enemies, though I couldn't get it. And the second affix in tampering is chance to deal additional shadows damage. This is actually, I think, the most powerful tampering aspect for the weapon for this build. I don't really believe it works as it is supposed to, because I think it triggers the Zafao ring effect and shadow blight too often. Maybe that's because that's actually where most of the power comes on this build, and I believe this is because all kinds of damage that the enemies take are considered hits. I am not really sure if this is how it's supposed to work. I believe hit is actual hit either by, in this case, swinging the sight with reap, or like any hit, direct hit from the blight projectiles. But we are yet to see if that is the case, or hit counts as like any damage taken. If that's the case, then it works as it's supposed to. I didn't really test the other elemental tampering affixes here, like chance to deal physical damage, or chance to deal some other kind of damage, like fire, cold, poison, whatever. So I'll make sure to test that and maybe talk about it more in a separate video, because I'm not really sure about this, but the idea is this is how we boost the offensive stats on this character here. It's obvious I socketed with Amethyst to increase the damage over time. On the amulet, I'm using the new amulet here, Even Piercer. I tried to hit as much damage reduction as possible, but also essence cost reduction is really important for this build, so I kind of felt it's okay to have it like hit twice. It's obvious because it's a yellow number, right? Unfortunately, here the unique power is very low on damage, it's like min roll, and I hope to find a better one to see the actual difference. I'm also using here the Zafaus ring. Maybe it would have been better if I actually hit here the damage over time 3 times, or maybe, I don't know, the old stats to try to hit Paragon node bonuses 3 times, but I believe it's not so bad. Wouldn't really want I wouldn't really want to waste more time, like too much crafting and all that. So I figured that's kind of fine. The cooldown actually could really help because of the Decrepify. It also reduces cooldowns, and the only cooldown here we are using is Corpse Tendrils, and to actually survive in the tough situation like tier 200 pit, cooldown could really help to constantly spam, so to say, Corpse Tendrils. Just reap and cast Tendrils, or let the other ring cast it, and it helps a lot with survivability and also dealing more damage, but we'll get to that. Of course, I'm using here the Ring of the Sacrilegious Soul. Maybe the best thing to actually masterwork here is the Life and Essence. I don't believe plus 2 corpse skills has any effect. It could reduce the cooldown, it increases the damage a bit, but I don't know, it's no. So maybe you could do like Life and Essence, mostly Life. Try to hit Life 3 times, I think. I'm using also a shield, obviously. The important thing here is to have the at least the damage reduction to be a greater affix, right? Because trust me, it actually makes a significant difference if this is a greater affix or not. I've noticed it actually makes a significant difference. So if also you manage to get life as a greater affix as well, that would definitely help, especially on the bosses, and especially on those aiding cameo bosses which appear during a boss fight, because you can't really influence them in any way. That's kind of not fair. I guess they should be tuned down a bit, but you know, we'll see how this goes. I'm also using here lightning resistance and poison resistance to cap my resistances. Unfortunately, I can't imprint lightning resistance on the armor, I mean tamper, because it's a unique armor. I do believe uniques would greatly benefit from at least +1 to tampering option, because most of them are not so relevant compared to legendaries now. But in this case, with so much damage reduction and life, Soulbrand actually shines, and it's, like I said before, not so hard to get. You will notice here I socketed with Ruby to get more life, and I'm using the protecting aspect because it definitely helps with survivability, especially having in mind we won't have the elixir of death evasion on hardcore anymore starting from next season. Yay! We can finally die in this game on hardcore. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, and I'm using here the Decrepify Zeiss. Doesn't matter if you get Corpse Tendril Zeiss, I believe, but make sure to have at least on one gear piece the plus to Decrepify Zeiss, because before engaging the enemies you want to cast Decrepify on them, then do Reap to get a corpse and cast Tendrils, and then start spamming your core skill to delete them, right? Something like. I guess that covers the gear part. I wish there were like other ways to get more damage reduction. Probably the seasonal mechanic will provide that, because it's definitely felt to the extent that I had to use Blood Golem. So let's get to the Book of the Dead here. I sacrificed the Reapers to get additional shadow damage. I sacrificed here the Cold Mages to get damage to vulnerable enemies, because we're making enemies vulnerable with the Corpse Tendrils, so that helps a lot. to kill them faster while they are stunned and vulnerable. Pretty good. And you will see here that I'm using the Blood Golem. I'm using it because of the Blood Golem absorbs 30% of damage you will take. That tremendously help in tier 200s and difficult content overall, or in case you don't have good defenses. So that's the thing to do. Otherwise, I would have picked to sacrifice here the Iron Golem. This is because the Blight projectiles, when they hit, they can crit, and also the Shadow Blight can crit, and also this foul purple explosion can also crit. Okay, let's discuss the skill tree here a bit. I'm using Reap with Enhanced Reap, Acolyte's Reap, also Blight, Enhanced Blight, and Paranormal Blight. I would like to discuss Paranormal Blight a bit, and why I didn't choose Supernatural Blight. It's because of the chance to immobilize. It contributes to the boss stagger bar quite a lot. So I would prefer to stagger the boss, take a breather, assess the situation I am in, and that helps tremendously against especially those tier 200 bosses. But if you feel like you want to do more damage, feel free to, of course, use Supernatural Blight, right? I am using Hewitt Flash, Undying Energy, Unliving Energy, excuse me, Imperfectly Balanced to increase the damage, Corpse Explosion up to the point to get Blighted Corpse Explosion, because it would also help with triggering this foul effect, and Shadow Blight. 1 point here on Grim Harvest, 3 points on Fueled by Death. I'm also using Death's Embrace to reduce the damage taken from close enemies. Like I said, this is a close combat build. Death's Approach for mobility. And of course, Decrepify, Amplified Damage, Enhanced Decrepify, and Abhorrent Decrepify, which tremendously helps by cooling down Corpse Tendrils, so we can don't let the enemies breathe, basically, by constantly using Corpse Tendrils. Corpse Tendrils, of course, there it is, and Plagued Corpse Tendrils to make enemies vulnerable. 1 point on Reaper's Pursuit, 1 point here, actually, because it also helps with Fortify, especially on bosses where there are no other enemies. When we reap, we can also fortify, and that tremendously helps there. Together with the exhumation, we'll get to that in a bit. 1 point on Crippling Darkness to contribute to the stagger bars of bosses. 3 points on Terror. This is also another reason to pick, of course, the Paranormal Blight. And 3 points on Gloom, the most important passive for the Shadow Necromancer. And here I'm using the Golem Mastery, but if you feel your Golem is too tanky or doesn't die in general, you can use the Inspiring Leader to get crit chance, because the Blight projectiles, when they hit, they can crit. Also, this foul effect can crit, and also Shadow Blight can crit. And I'm also using here Standalone. It reduces my damage reduction by 2, but it provides 16, obviously, and the Golem provides yet another 30, so that's pretty good, I think. I'm not using the skeletons, so I sacrificed both, right? And I'm using Memento Mori here to boost these bonuses. Okay, moving on to the Paragon board here. It's not the usual thing probably you might expect. I am using the Darkness glyph here to get shadow damage. Maybe it could also work well with Amplify, but the thing is here, whether your minions deal shadow damage to an enemy, that enemy deals 2% reduced damage up to 10% for 5 seconds. So that's the important part here, the additional bonus of this glyph. And I believe it's more valuable than having here some damage bumped up from like 5 to 7 or whatever, or just more armor, because we can get the armor from other sources. And it's actually more useful to get in the intelligence nodes here instead of this one, because it's 1.6% better. Okay, I actually was using this second board turned a bit to the left, but I noticed if I turn it like this, I could get 1 extra point on the Paragon board, and this really matters. So this here is Wither, and I am using here the Abyssal glyph to increase my damage and shadow resistance, so I don't really have to worry about shadow resistance on my gear so much, or like socket with amethyst or whatever. Then I am moving here to Scent of Death. This is probably a board which no Necromancer could do without, because it provides a lot of damage reduction and also damage in either case, depending on if you have corpses around or not. So then I think I was moving to this one. This is the Flesh Eater. Unfortunately, I had no way of taking this additional damage here. That would have helped tremendously, but no way, I guess. I'm using here the Territorial glyph because the build is close combat, and the Territorial glyph provides additional 10% damage reduction, which really helps a lot. I'm also taking this here, the damage to elites. It's really important to get this board first, I believe, so you can get this bonus, because the bosses are really heavy, especially on tier 200 pit. Okay, let me see which one I took first. I think it was this one. Yeah, sorry. Bloodbath. Bloodbath, I take this here because I can use exploit to scale my damage additionally, because especially of the bonus effect, which is dealing damage to vulnerable enemy, increases your damage by 1% for 6 seconds up to 10% multiplicatively. That's pretty good, and we pretty much apply vulnerable really easy with corpse tendrils to many enemies at once. Now I also got the life here, the life points, really important. And finally I moved on to this board, the Hulking Monstrosity. I don't think it really matters here. Maybe I could have gotten the other minion board to get damage reduction, but I saw that the golem is pretty tanky. It's actually tankier than the Necromancer itself, so I guess that's totally fine. I could try it to check it if I can get like better bonuses or less points. We'll see. I will definitely update the video if that's possible. But I am using here the exhumation glyph for the damage reduction and the fortify, because fortify provides additional damage reduction and the glyph itself provides additional damage reduction, like 4% damage reduction for 4 seconds. And the sacrilegious soul is also bursting the corpses, so that really helps with the damage reduction. And also it increases the damage. Not that it matters for corpse explosion on this build. What matters is the more corpse explosions, the more shadow blight, and the more the foul effect, and the more fortify and damage reduction. So you can actually also do corpse explosion manually. You've probably seen me do this, especially on the bosses. When I run out of essence and when they're staggered, that's what I do. First, I hit with Reap, then I like cast Corpse Explosion manually so I can get back to Reap, restore essence quickly, and keep pumping the corpse skill Blight. So I guess that covers the Paragon board. I could try to make it more optimal, but I guess for now that's what I have, and it worked. Okay, so there's one more thing you can do to make this character even better defensive wise, but it will slightly reduce the offensive side of things, of course. What you can do is go to the skill tree and get rid of Corpse Explosion. Right, Blighted Corpse Explosion, Enhanced Corpse Explosion, and also the Corpse Explosion itself, right? And then what you can do is add Bone Storm here and use it instead of Corpse Explosion. Why this will work? Because the Bone Storm, you can trigger it when you're in danger together with the potion to get also a barrier, right? And it will provide additional damage reduction and additional critical strike chance. What is great about this is that when used by the Sacrilegious Soul Ring, Corpse Tendrils counts as corpse consumption. So it will also increase your essence, right? It will generate essence, and it will also increase your damage. Because of also it will trigger the Flesh Eater. So it's up to you if you want to make it like more defensive or more offensive, depending on the case. So I hope that helps as well. Now let's discuss a bit the elixirs and the incenses I am using. So I'm using the elixir of fortitude to increase my life. As you can see, it gets pretty high. I am also using the desert escape to get more resistances. I am also using this buzz here to increase the life, the mind buzz or whatever it's called, and the life can get pretty high. I believe it's better to actually stack even more life here, because sometimes it just doesn't feel enough. And I'm also using the Chorus of War to also increase the all stats. There's something else actually I would like to try on this build, and it is to use, instead of the dodge chance here on the pants and on the boots respectively, to try to use life per second to test if that actually helps recovering from a very heavy hit better than actually trying to avoid that hit with dodge chance. So we'll see about that maybe on the next video or something. What I can say about softcore players, maybe what you can also do is, instead of this, try to play with the focus and add aspect of the damned. We are cursing all the enemies anyway, and it will increase the damage tremendously, especially if it has like crit chance and I don't know. Didn't really think about it because it's I want to make this build hardcore viable. It obviously works, but still it requires a lot of skill. I am not sure what else to add here. I hope you like this. Maybe I could touch a bit more on the armor here, because this armor value is quite high. Actually, to cap the armor on level 200 monster, you need exactly 16,463 armor. So I guess I did pretty well here. Just 4 armor over the cap. This will also allow you to easily do tier 100 nightmare dungeons with the affix armor breakers, which has the potential for ranged enemies when they hit you to reduce your armor. So the cap usually there for it is 154, right? Monster level 154. Let me see. I have this table here for the armor. I will link it in the description if you want. But the cap for the armor for level 154 for Nightmare Dungeons tier 100 is exactly 13,200. So that makes it also viable for tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons, and probably it will be a walk in the park even with the Armor Breakers affix, right? And also about the resistances, they are definitely overcapped, as you can see. So if there is resistance breakers, you will probably still be having a walk in the park defensive wise. I guess that pretty much covers the build. If there's anything else you would like me to discuss about this build, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this build, and how far did you get in the pit? How are you enjoying the Diablo 4 PTR so far? And what do you make of all this in general, right? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, hope it helps you if you want to play Necromancer, like for fun or anything, if you're having difficulties clearing some content, or if you want to try hardcore. I guess that's it, there's nothing much more to add here, so thank you guys for watching, and hope to see you on the next live stream or video. Zeiss out, take care!